Welcome back, YouTube. I told you I'd find it, and I did. I got two of them, and this is one of them that I found. It's the $100 trillion note as issued by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. And I'm sure they have plenty of reserves to cover these, or did. I believe they are obsolete now. At the time of its issuance, this $100 trillion note would be unable to even purchase you a pack of Wrigley's bubblegum or Wrigley's chewing gum. Couldn't even buy you a sick chicken. Now, the reason you see some other currencies out there is I wanted to draw some comparisons, and as we had this conversation, something interesting about the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe and this note, and it took some digging to find out. I remember when I first did it, I wanted to find out who printed them, who was giving them these notes and constantly meeting the demands of their government and just printing these off in volume. And after some digging, there's several companies that print the euro, and one of them, I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. It's Giesecke and Devrient. That's Giesecke and Devrient, which is Devrient. Major printing house in Germany, and they are one of the major printers of the euro note. And it just so happens that the Zimbabwe note you see here is printed on identical paper and inks and everything like that, just different images, different style obviously, but as the euro in the same printing houses. So you got to ask yourself at some point, what is the difference between the euro and these? Is it the nation's economic policies? Is it the faith of the people in the currency? It's debt to asset, it's balance books. I mean, there's a lot of things you could ask yourself. But it is interesting to note that they both come from the same printing house. One of the reasons I started this YouTube channel, I've been into this kind of thing for a long time, economics, money. I'm not an expert at it. But as we've kind of slid down the path in America towards inflation and poor economic policies, debt, and the Keynesians just continue their grip on the U.S. economy, of which they've had since the 1920s and 30s. And some would even say they were influential before that in ways with similar policies. As we've slid down this path, I've become more and more concerned about not only my personal finances and financial future, but that of my kids and posterity, friends, neighbors, coworkers, everybody. I think we should all have a sense of care and belonging to the nation we live in and to our families, and just do what we can to figure out ways to improve, our nation and our life. And one of those is, I think, economics is a big part of it. They say that, I don't know the exact order, but economic wars lead to trade wars, which lead to currency wars, which lead to shooting wars. And a lot of people are using those terminologies now that, hey, there was an economic war, now there was a trade war, there was things going on with China, a lot of harsh words, and now you hear verbiage about there being a currency war. And if you follow that little phrase all the way through, then there's the shooting wars, and no one wants to see that happen. I think we should all be for world peace in every way. But economics, resources, it all gets down to power and government, and money is power. Those who have it have the power, and those who have the ability to issue it and print money, they have all the power. So being that we're going to be all over the map here with this conversation, but this is kind of just because I missed it. I didn't do a real good introduction on the channel, so here it is, kind of an introduction / let's talk about these paper notes. Look up that company, read about it. It's pretty interesting. The Giesecke and Devrient, the one that prints the euro and also was flooding Zimbabwe with these notes. Just interesting little fact there. And if you can, order one of these up, keep it in your wallet. It's a nice conversation piece, especially when you get on the topic of hyperinflation with people. But, you know, you got some other notes here. Here's a $500 bill. It might look familiar to some of you. This is, if you land on free parking, sometimes you can get a couple of these. Here's a Monopoly note. Now that's printed by, what is it, Milton Bradley? I think so. I don't know the game company. But then you've got, you got these guys over here. Now none of these are going to, these are all just, it's all paper, right? Someone could get me a big economics spiel on how these are loaned into existence by the Fed to the Treasury, and then interest is paid, and therefore there's, purchasing power and faith and credit of the United States and blah blah blah. I really don't care. I've read all that. I used to invest heavily in the stock market. I know where money comes from. I know the difference between money and currency. And I just find it interesting that if this holds value, these green notes here, if they hold true value, why there has to be a law in place that forces me to receive it in payment of goods or services, and forces you to receive it in payment of goods and services, and also at the same time does not allow for any form of competing currency within the United States, which we had in the past. There were other currencies circulating, especially foreign coin of specific weights and measures, gold and silver. But if you'll note, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. I'd encourage you to look up the Legal Tender Act. And also with that, the Supreme Court case, Hepburn versus Griswold. I'll try to summarize it a little bit here. Back to this being an introduction to the channel. This Supreme Court case and what I learned about the Legal Tender Act is one of the, it was pretty much the impetus which drove me towards gold and silver in the first place. I had known about it. I'd been a collector of coins, but the Supreme Court case that we're going to talk about right now really helped push me in the direction that I ended up going prior to 2007. So, in summary, the parties, Hepburn and Griswold, who was the plaintiff? For the sake of this story, we'll make Hepburn be the bad person and Griswold be the good person. Okay. So, a gentleman named Griswold, let's say, he loaned $10,000 in gold coin to a person by the name of Hepburn. Okay? Now, at the time, the Civil War was raging, and Hepburn went to pay back Griswold, not in the gold coin that she had been loaned, but in Lincoln greenbacks. It's very applicable to have a $5 bill here, because a lot of this has to do with the President Abraham Lincoln, being that it was his law and his greenbacks to help pay for the war. You'll notice that hyperinflation or inflation and unbacked currencies a lot of times arise during a time of conflict and war, because the only times governments can really fund war, violence, and mass death is by issuing unbacked currency with their promise to pay and just basically debt. So, in order to pay for the war, which killed approximately 600,000 United States citizens to hold the Union together, Lincoln issued these greenback notes, which had a discount on the free market. So you couldn't exchange them for gold and silver like you could the notes prior to that, the gold and silver notes prior to the Civil War and prior to the greenback. So Hepburn tried to pay Griswold back in these greenbacks, and he knew on the market that that she was giving him $10,000 in notes was only going to fetch him about $5,000 if he were to try to get his gold back. Let me move the camera for you so you can see all the little notations here, my artwork. Okay. So he knew that the $10,000 in greenbacks were only going to equal $5,000 in real money. And he said, you know what? No, I want my gold back. I loaned you gold. By golly, you're going to pay me gold back. It ended up going to the Supreme Court. The guys with the wigs Okay, our judges with ties. I like drawing people with ties. Okay, so the Supreme Court and Justice, being blind, ruled initially in his favor. Said, you know what, Mrs. Hepburn, let's call her Catherine, even though it's not her name, you need to pay Mr. Griswold back his $10,000. And remember, I might have these names switched. This might be the good party in this, but I don't have it pulled up, so I'm not reading it verbatim. This is just from memory. You got to pay him his $10,000 in gold, not in greenbacks. Well, lo and behold, that decision got reversed shortly thereafter. I believe when Lincoln died and Grant became president, something of that nature. For whatever reason, Grant ended up replacing some justices on the court. The decision was revisited. Maybe it was still tied up in litigation. I don't exactly remember. However, the decision was reversed, and the Legal Tender Act ended up being, I guess, the prevailing law in the situation, stating that, you know what, no, you have to take her $10,000 regardless of being that you loaned her gold, etc. There's some great quotations from some of the judges that took place during that court case, and I'm going to read one for you right now. So if you just pardon me, wait 1 second, I'll pull it up for you. The article that you can find a lot of this in is called The Federal War on Gold. And it's by a guy named Jacob Hornberger. Okay? Jacob G. Hornberger. The Federal War on Gold. You can look that up. Now, what I'm going to read to you is that after the ruling the second time, okay, Hepburn versus Griswold. It was a Supreme Court case in 1869. And it took place 5 years after the war ended. So he was probably fighting or trying to get his money because he had loaned it during the war. The court ruled in favor of Griswold, holding a 4-3 decision that legal tender laws violated the U.S. Constitution. So they ruled initially that the legal tender law violated the U.S. Constitution. That law right there. Okay, that was the initial ruling of the Supreme Court. The majority opinion distinguished between money and notes to pay money. And here you go. This is the majority opinion. There is a well-known law of currency that notes or promises to pay, unless made conveniently and promptly convertible into coin, at the will of the holder, can never, except under unusual and abnormal conditions, be at par in circulation with coin. It is an equally well-known law that depreciation of notes must increase with the increase of the quantity put in circulation and the diminution of confidence in the ability or disposition to redeem. Their appreciation follows the reversal of these conditions. No act making them a legal tender can change materially the operation of these laws. The court also explained that the power to coin money, which the Constitution delegates to Congress, did not constitute a power to convert promissory notes into money. And here's their opinion there. It is not doubted that the power to establish a standard of value by which all other values may be measured, or in other words, to determine what shall be lawful money and a legal tender, is in its nature and of necessity a governmental power. It is in all countries exercised by the government. In the United States, so far as it relates to the precious metals, it is vested in Congress by the grant of the power to coin money. But can a power to impart these qualities to notes or promises to pay money, when offered in discharge of pre-existing debts, be derived from the coinage power or from other power expressly given? Now, after a time, as I told you, it was overturned. 1 year later, the situation changed. Grant became president, and the decision was reversed. Okay? I want to read to you Justice Stephen J. Field, his dissenting opinion. Okay, I think it's very relevant to today. The power to coin money is, in my judgment, inconsistent with and repugnant to the existence of a power to make anything but coin a legal tender. To coin money is to mold metallic substances having intrinsic value into certain forms convenient for commerce, and to impress them with the stamp of the government indicating their value. Coins are pieces of metal, of definite weight and value, thus stamped by national authority. Such is the natural import of the terms to coin money and coin. He goes on, the power to coin money is therefore a power to fabricate coins out of metal as money, and thus make them a legal tender for their declared value as indicated by their stamp. If this be the true import and meaning of the language used, it is difficult to see how Congress can make the power of the government a legal tender. Field placed the constitutional issue in historic context. He said, the statesmen who framed the Constitution understood this principle as well as it is understood in our day. They had seen in the experience of the revolutionary period the demoralizing tendency, the cruel injustice, and the intolerable oppression of a paper currency not convertible on demand into money, forced into circulation by legal tender provisions and penal enactments. Remember, this is 1869, the Supreme Court guy is saying this. So, those are pretty powerful words, I'd say so. I think it's interesting that that took place way back then. The Supreme Court has had several opinions on, gold, its convertibility. There's been trials on this for a long period of time. And the one last I'd like to read is the Supreme Court's opinions in the Gold Clause cases. See Norman versus Baltimore and O.R. Company. The most persuasive argument, not surprisingly, were published by the dissenters, McReynolds, Sutherland, Van Devanter, and Butler, who often voted to declare much of Roosevelt's New Deal unconstitutional. Here's a great quote. Just men regard repudiation and spoliation of its citizens by their sovereign with abhorrence. But we are asked to affirm that the Constitution has granted power to accomplish both. No definite delegation of such a power exists, and we cannot believe the far-seeing framers who labored with hope of establishing justice and securing the blessings of liberty intended that the expected government should have authority to annihilate its own obligations and destroy the very rights which they were endeavoring to protect. Not only is there no permission for such actions, they are inhibited, and no plenitude of words can conform them to our charter. Under the challenged statutes, it is said, the United States have realized profits amounting to $2,800,000,000. But this assumes that gain may be generated by legislative fiat. To such counterfeit profits, there would be no limit. With each new debasement of the dollar, they would expand. 2 billions might be ballooned indefinitely to 20, 30, or what you will. Remind me, what is it, 17 trillion today we're at? Okay. Loss of repudiation for honorable dealing will bring us unending humiliation. The impending legal and moral chaos is appalling. Moral chaos. I like that term. Okay. So there you go. Paper money. Interesting, isn't it? I mean, how we can sit around and we can have this debate. You can have so many different opinions on it. What are your thoughts? Are these pot metal coins worth €1 just because the European Union says they are? Next time we have a stimulus program, why doesn't the government just monetize Monopoly games and allow these as legal tender? Just put legal tender on that note. What would be the difference? I ask. If governments created wealth, why are there poor people? Ask yourself that. Ask a Keynesian that. If governments can and do create wealth out of nothing, why do they allow there to be poor people? Those that go without, those that are hungry. They should just will it. And through legislative fiat, allow everyone to be rich. Allow everyone to be a billionaire. print this stuff off, give it out, make everyone have the same amount of money in the entire country. Everyone. It's very interesting indeed. Now this leads me to, there's a lot of discombobulated thoughts here. I know, it's kind of all over the place. This isn't like an organized radio program or anything. I'm just having a conversation with you guys. But it makes you wonder, you know? How hard is it to get one of these out of the ground? We always come back to this. How would you feel if you loaned somebody $10,000 worth in gold and they came back to you 6 years later and they paid you in notes that were completely devalued and gold had gone up in value at the time? How would you feel? Because this is really the true money. This is the true wealth. You can, if you don't believe that, you don't agree, and you're just here to hate and troll on the channel, that's fine. But I would ask you, if this doesn't have value, if it is an archaic relic, if gold is not worth anything, why do central banks buy it? Why have they increased their holdings in gold more than at any time in the last several decades? Just in the last 2 years, expanding their position in gold, gobbling it up. The Bundesbank of Germany canceling sales and holding gold. The United States Fed holding gold. The list goes on. Why would the Federal Reserve hold gold if it was not valuable? And hold it in the measurement of tons, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of tons, if it wasn't valuable. I'll tell you why, because they know it is real money. It is wealth. And it reacts to what goes on around it. It may be inanimate. It may just be a rare metal, the amount of which could only fill up 2 Olympic swimming pools, all the gold ever mined since the beginning of time. So, some food for thought. Welcome to the channel. I appreciate all of you who are taking part in the conversations, your comments, your sharing. I try to answer questions immediately. I'm not an expert, but I like to have these conversations, you know. I'm in a pretty remote area, so for a reason, but I like to talk to people about this kind of thing, and I don't have a lot of that opportunity where I live. So those of you who do take part in conversing with me on this topic and these issues, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time, and thanks a lot. Thanks for coming here. Have a great day. Remember, keep stacking.